Have you ever opened an email that shattered your heart in just a few short sentences? I did, and it came from the one person I thought would never ever treat me like a stranger. My daughter. My name is Susan Harper. I'm 59 years old, a widow, and I live in a quiet suburb of Texas where the cicadas hum in the evenings and neighbors wave as they water their lawns. For nearly 2 decades, I've worked as an office manager at Thompson & Associates law firm. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and it gave me enough to raise my 2 children, Anna, now 32, and James, 29, without letting them feel the kind of struggles I had to face after their father passed away suddenly. I built my life around making sure my kids never felt that kind of fear, that kind of lack. I worked extra shifts. I skipped vacations. I cut coupons. I did everything in my power so that they could chase their dreams without looking over their shoulders. That's why, on one ordinary Tuesday morning, when I saw Anna's name pop up in my inbox, I smiled. She rarely emailed me. Text messages, sure. Phone calls, sometimes. But an email, that felt intentional, special. There was no subject line. But I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was rushing between meetings, or maybe she wanted to surprise me with some exciting wedding update. You see, Anna is getting married. Sonoma Valley, a picture-perfect vineyard wedding. I had already poured $30,000 into it. The venue deposit, the photographer, the florist. I did it gladly. I wanted her to have the kind of celebration I never got the chance to have. So I clicked open the email with a little flutter in my chest. And then, everything changed. The email was short, brutally short. Mom, after talking with Michael and his parents, we've decided the wedding guest list has to be smaller. Michael's mom really wants it to be an intimate affair, so we thought it would be best if you didn't come in person. Don't worry though, you can watch on Google Meet. LOL. That was it. No apology, no warmth, just instructions. My eyes went back and forth across those lines, like I was misreading them, like maybe there was a punchline hidden between the words. But there wasn't. My daughter, my only daughter, was telling me I wasn't welcome at her wedding. And she ended it with LOL, as if it were some kind of joke. I sat there frozen in my kitchen, the email glowing back at me from my laptop screen. The morning sunlight was streaming through the blinds, dust motes floating in the air, the coffee pot still half full beside me. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. For a moment, my chest physically ached. It wasn't just sadness, it was humiliation, shock, disbelief. I whispered to myself, did she really just write this? I thought about the years I had spent building her life brick by brick, the college tuition checks, the countless heartbreaks I sat through on the phone, the late-night drives to her dorm when she said she couldn't take it anymore, the money I'd saved so carefully just to give her this dream wedding. And yet, here I was, crossed off the list. I typed a response, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. What could I even say? Finally, I settled on the shortest, coldest sentence of my life. Sure, enjoy your big day. I hit send. And in that moment, something inside me went quiet. I didn't cry right away. I didn't scream. I didn't even call anyone. Instead, I just sat back in my chair, staring at the faded wallpaper of my kitchen, and thought about how invisible I had become to the people I had given everything to. It was as if I'd been reduced to a wallet with a pulse, a resource, not a mother, not family, just convenient, until I wasn't. The rest of that day felt like moving underwater. I drove to work, greeted the receptionist, and sat behind my desk like nothing had happened. But inside, I was replaying those 3 letters over and over. LOL. My boss, David, popped his head in at one point. You okay, Susan? He asked. I forced a smile. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? But I wasn't okay. Not even close. That night, I poured myself a glass of the Cabernet I'd been saving for Anna's engagement party. I sat out on my porch, listening to the crickets, staring at the stars, and tried to make sense of it all. The betrayal didn't feel sharp. It felt heavy, like a weight pressing on my chest. For the first time in my life, I wondered if maybe I had been a fool all along. Had I raised children who only saw me as a stepping stone? Had my love been invisible because it came in the form of sacrifice instead of celebration? The questions had no answers, so instead, I sipped my wine, shut my laptop, and whispered into the night air, "Sure. Enjoy your big day." But deep down, I knew. Something inside me had shifted, and there was no going back. Have you ever looked back on your life and realized every sacrifice you made was treated like it didn't matter? That's exactly how I felt the morning after that email. The Texas spring air was cool. As I slid into my car, the sky was soft blue, the kind of morning that should have felt hopeful. But my hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. My jaw clenched so tight, I thought my teeth might crack. I couldn't stop hearing Anna's voice in my head. Except it wasn't her real voice. It was the words from that email, LOL. Like my absence at her wedding was some kind of joke. Every mile I drove toward work, memories flashed across my mind, like a cruel slideshow. I remembered the time she called me from college, sobbing because she didn't have enough money for textbooks. I picked up an extra weekend shift at the firm, just so I could wire her the money the next day. I remembered when she decided, halfway through her junior year, that she hated her major. She wanted to switch programs, move apartments, start over. Everyone told me it was a waste of money. But I told her, if this makes you happy, we'll figure it out. I drained my savings account to cover the fees. I remembered her first heartbreak, when Michael wasn't even in the picture yet. She showed up on my porch at 2 a.m, mascara running down her cheeks. I stayed up with her until sunrise, making pancakes she barely touched. And when she finally slept, I called in sick to work so she wouldn't be alone. Every sacrifice, every dollar, every tear. And this is how it ended. Replaced by Michael's family, as if my existence was nothing but a placeholder. By the time I pulled into the office parking lot, my hands were trembling so badly, I could barely turn the key to shut off the ignition. Inside, everything was normal. Phones rang, the copier jammed, someone reheated fish in the break room. But I felt like I was walking around in a different universe, one where my role as a mother had expired without warning. David, my boss, noticed. He walked into my office, holding a paper cup. "I got you a latte," he said, placing it on my desk. That small kindness, the warmth of the cup, the gentle look in his eyes, almost broke me. I swallowed hard, forcing back tears. "Thanks, David. You didn't have to." He smiled. "Sometimes people need a little something extra. You look like you could use it, if only he knew." At lunch, I sat in my car again, staring at my phone. 4 missed calls from Anna, 2 texts from James. My children, the very people who had thrown me aside, were now blowing up my phone, desperate for my attention. But I didn't answer, not yet. For once, I wanted the silence. Instead, I drove to First National Bank. Miguel, the branch manager, greeted me with his usual professional smile. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Harper. How can we help you today?" My voice was steady. Too steady. "I need to cancel a pending wire transfer, $50,000. It was supposed to go toward a wedding." His eyebrows lifted slightly, but he didn't ask questions. "Of course. I'll take care of that immediately." I signed the paperwork, slid the pen back across the desk, and stood up. "Thank you, Miguel." As I walked out of that bank, the strangest feeling washed over me. Not guilt, not fear, relief. It was like reclaiming a piece of myself I hadn't even realized I'd given away. That evening, I sat on my porch with a bottle of red wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. Funny, isn't it? I thought this wine would be for toasting Anna's engagement. Instead, it became the drink I poured for myself, celebrating the fact that I finally said no. The phone buzzed and buzzed beside me. Anna's name. James's name, over and over, but I didn't pick up. Instead, I stared out into the darkening Texas sky, listening to the hum of crickets, and let the memories swirl around me. Vacations I never took because the money had to go to braces. The car I never bought because tuition came first. The dreams I packed away in boxes, labeled someday. And yet, to them, I was disposable, replaceable, an embarrassment to be hidden away on the most important day of my daughter's life. A wave of anger rolled through me so sharp, it felt like fire in my chest. How dare they? How dare Anna sit there with her fiancé and his parents, nodding along as they erased me from her wedding guest list? How dare she smile when I paid the invoices, then laugh me off with an LOL when it came time to acknowledge my existence? And James, my son, who I co-signed a mortgage for, who I gave $10,000 to so he could buy his house, would he stand by her too? Would he look me in the eye and tell me I was making everything about myself? The betrayal stung deeper than any knife, because this wasn't just about the wedding. This was about every sacrifice, every compromise, every piece of myself I had given away without complaint. I poured another glass of wine, leaned back in my chair, and whispered into the night, "They don't get to do this to me anymore." For the first time in decades, I wasn't thinking about what Anna needed, or what James wanted, or how I could fix everything. I was thinking about me, and I realized something shocking, something that almost made me laugh through the tears. It wasn't my invitation to the wedding that had expired. It was my willingness to keep playing the fool. What happens when the child you've sacrificed everything for looks you in the eye and calls you selfish? I found out that night. I was sitting on my porch, the wine bottle nearly empty beside me, when I saw headlights pull into my driveway. At first, I thought maybe Anna had flown all the way from California to grovel. But no, it was James, my son. He didn't even knock, just barged through the front door like he still lived here. His voice carried down the hallway before I could even get up. "Mom, what the hell is going on? Why aren't you answering your phone?" I walked inside slowly, calm on the outside, but boiling on the inside. "Good evening to you too, James." He ran a hand through his hair, clearly agitated. "Anna is freaking out. You can't just ghost her like this. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I tilted my head. "What I've done?" "Yes," he practically shouted. "Michael's parents are furious. The caterer's threatening to cancel because payments bounced. The florist is saying they can't hold the date. Anna's in tears. Mom, you've made this whole wedding about you." Those words, about me. It was like gasoline poured over the fire already burning in my chest. I stepped closer, my voice low but sharp. "James, do you have any idea how much money I've already given your sister?" $30,000. Venue. Photographer. Flowers. And I was about to send another $50,000. $80,000, James. That's more than I make in 2 years. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "And after all of that, your sister had the audacity to tell me I'm not welcome at her wedding. Do you know how I found out? An email. No subject line, no apology, just instructions to watch on Google Meet, followed by LOL. James looked uncomfortable, but still defensive. "Mom, you're blowing this out of proportion. Michael's parents." "Michael's parents," I snapped. "Since when do Michael's parents get to decide whether I, her mother, am at her wedding? Since when does my love, my sacrifice, my years of raising her alone mean nothing compared to what they want?" He tried again, softer this time. "It's complicated. Michael's family is very traditional. They wanted something small and exclusive. Anna didn't want to hurt you." "Hurt me?" I laughed, bitter and sharp. "She didn't want to hurt me, but she excluded me from the most important day of her life. She didn't want to hurt me, but she took my money with one hand and shoved me out the door with the other." The silence between us was heavy. Finally, James sighed. "You're making everything about yourself. This is Anna's wedding, not yours." That was it. The moment the knife twisted. I stared at him, my son, the boy I had rocked to sleep, the man I had bailed out when his mortgage threatened to collapse. And he had the nerve, the gall, to call me selfish. My voice trembled, but not from fear, from rage. Do you know what I'm sick of, James? I'm sick of this family treating me like I'm only good for writing checks. I'm sick of being invisible until there's a crisis. I am done being the villain in a story built on my love. He blinked. Mom. No, I cut in, my finger pointing toward the door. Get out. Right now. Are you serious? Dead serious. Because tonight, for the first time in years, I am choosing myself. He stood there, stunned. His mouth opened like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Finally, he muttered, "Fine," and stormed toward the door. The slam echoed through the house, rattling the picture frames on the walls. But instead of guilt washing over me like it usually did, something else filled the silence: liberation. I sank into my chair, my hands still trembling, but my heart strangely steady. For decades, I had bent over backwards, contorted myself into impossible shapes, just to keep my children comfortable, to keep them happy, to keep them from ever feeling the kind of pain I felt when their father died. And yet, in their eyes, I was still selfish, still disposable. But for the first time, I realized something powerful. Their opinion of me didn't have to be my truth. I didn't have to keep proving my worth. I didn't have to keep bleeding myself dry for the sake of their approval. I was allowed to say no. I was allowed to take up space. I was allowed to stop. I poured myself the last glass of wine, raised it to the empty room, and whispered, "To freedom." At last, and when I drained the glass, I knew. The story of who I was in this family had changed forever. What would you do if your child's best friend showed up at your doorstep, begging you to save a wedding you weren't even invited to? That happened to me. It was just after sunset, the sky painted in streaks of orange and purple, when I heard a knock at my door. Not frantic like James's, not entitled like Anna's calls. Just soft, hesitant. I opened the door, and there stood Olivia, Anna's childhood best friend, the girl who used to sleep over in a pile of blankets on my living room floor, the one I'd driven to soccer practice alongside Anna, cheering from the sidelines like she was one of my own. She looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot. "Hi, Mrs. Harper." Something in my chest softened. "Olivia. Well, this is a surprise. Come in." We sat in the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea, steam curling into the air. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, she sighed. "Anna doesn't know I came," she admitted. "But I can't watch this fall apart without at least trying to help." My hands tightened around the mug. "Fall apart?" She nodded, eyes full of pity. "It's bad. Really bad. The venue dropped them. The florist backed out. The caterer won't hold the date without full payment. Michael's parents are furious. They're talking about canceling everything." I let out a slow breath. "I see." Olivia leaned forward, her voice gentle but urgent. "Anna's a mess. She's crying nonstop. She keeps saying if she could just fix things with you, everything would work out. If you could forgive her, if you could just help her again, maybe it could all be saved." Her words were kind, but I heard the subtext. If you could just open your wallet again, everything could be saved. I set my mug down carefully, choosing my words. "Olivia, I appreciate you coming. I know you mean well, but let me ask you something. If Anna truly loved me, would she have cut me out of her wedding in the first place? Would she have laughed as she told me to watch from a live stream? Do you think an apology that only comes when she's desperate is really an apology?" Olivia's eyes flickered with sadness. She didn't argue. She didn't defend Anna. She just nodded slowly. "You're right," she whispered. "Words don't mean much when they come too late." We sat in silence for a while, sipping our tea. Finally, Olivia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth," she said softly, "you've always been more of a mother to me than anyone. I'm sorry Anna can't see that right now. Tears pricked my eyes, but this time they weren't from anger or humiliation. They were from gratitude. Thank you, sweetheart. She left not long after, her shoulders heavy with the weight of trying to carry two people's mistakes. And when the door closed behind her, I knew this wasn't my fight anymore. The days that followed were a blur of silence on my end and chaos on theirs. Through whispers in the community, I heard pieces of the story. The grand vineyard wedding in Sonoma was gone. The vendors had pulled out one by one. Michael's parents, unwilling to stomach the financial disaster, demanded something smaller, cheaper. In the end, Anna and Michael were married in the backyard of his parents' house. Just a handful of close relatives. Michael's mother's roses as decoration. Store-bought cake. No music, but a speaker on a folding table. And of course, I wasn't there. Not because they barred me, but because this time, I chose not to go. I sat on my porch that evening, sipping tea, as the Texas sky burned with stars. Somewhere, states away, my daughter was saying her vows without me. And for the first time, I didn't ache. I didn't crumble. Instead, I felt something shocking. Peace, because I finally understood. Love that excludes you until it needs you isn't love at all. It's convenience. And I was done being convenient. What do you do when the people who hurt you finally show up? Not with demands, but with humility. This time, I chose a different answer. It started with Anna's knock. Not a pounding, angry knock. Not the entitled rattle of someone who assumed I owed her my attention. This was different, soft, almost pleading. When I opened the door, she stood there, makeup smudged, eyes red from crying. She looked nothing like the radiant bride I once pictured walking down a vineyard aisle. "Mom," she whispered, "can I come in?" We sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where she used to do her homework, where I used to cut grapes in half so she wouldn't choke. She fidgeted with her hands. "I hurt you. I know I did. And I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I can't stop thinking about what I said, what I did. Leaving you out of my wedding. It was the worst mistake of my life." Her voice cracked, and for the first time in months, I saw not the entitled woman demanding money, but my daughter, raw and broken. A few days later, James came too. His apology was quieter, steadier. "Mom," he said, staring at the floor, "I called you selfish because it was easier than facing the truth, that I've been selfish my whole life. You've given us everything, and we treated you like an ATM. I'm ashamed." I listened, really listened. And when they both fell silent, waiting for me to rescue them the way I always had, I surprised them. "I believe you mean what you're saying," I told them softly. "And I love you. That hasn't changed, but here's what has. I won't go back to being the woman who gives until she's invisible. If you want me in your lives, you'll need to meet me halfway. I'll be your mother, not your bank. I'll show up, but only if I'm respected. And if you can't do that, then this distance will stay." They both cried. And this time, I didn't cry with them. I let them sit in the weight of their own guilt. But when Anna reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. When James hugged me before leaving, I let him. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to believe that people can change, while still protecting yourself if they don't. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. Anna started calling, not for money, not for help, but just to talk, to tell me about her new job, about dinners she cooked with Michael. Sometimes she even asked how I was doing, words that once felt foreign on her tongue. James came by on weekends, fixing the squeaky gate in my backyard, bringing groceries without asking for repayment. Small gestures, but real. And me? I kept my pottery class. I kept my book club. I kept my porch tea nights with friends who knew my worth. Because giving my children a second chance didn't mean giving up myself again. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Anna called. Her voice was quiet, almost shy. "Mom, Michael and I are planning a small dinner next month. No big guest list, no drama. Just family. We'd love for you to come, really come. As my mother tears welled in my eyes, but this time they felt light, cleansing. I'll think about it, I said gently, and I meant it. Because the truth is, I don't need their weddings or approval to define me anymore. I have my boundaries. I have my peace. And now, maybe, just maybe, I'll have my children back too. On my terms. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories of love, betrayal, and redemption, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Because every story has a lesson, and every lesson is worth remembering.